Okay, so a lot of people watch me texturize, I don't know if you guys do, but so I do very textured cuts, and I do a lot of fringe or bangs or different styles. So in my opinion, fringe is this part forward, and I'm pretty sure that's the standard. Whether it goes just across or is just this shaping around the face. So Hope had mentioned I would love a bang cutting class, so that's why I thought this would be really fun. And like, I think curtain bangs, the wolf cut, all that are super like popular right now with all that around the face. And I never ever not have bangs. So in my whole life, I've had all different types. So I've had really bad ones and really, really great haircuts when it comes to around my face. So for me, texturizing is a way to cut hair inside out. Like when people ask when they come in, they give a haircut and it's got a really blunt cut, but then you see all this movement. And so sometimes clients don't know the words they're looking for, and they really don't always need to. But what I try to ask clients is, layers to me create shape outside the hair, and texture creates shape inside the hair. So I think it's important to ask what a client's looking for. Are they looking for movement? Are they looking for bulk reduction? Are they looking for a way to define their natural texture? Like all those you can do with texturizing without even like changing the outside shape of the hair. So I think it's important to understand exactly what a client is looking for, and like what they want to create by putting texture, because like I have extremely texturized hair, and like Dana's layers, she's got a lot of movement, but her hair is pretty squared off on her ends. You don't see like a lot of like what I have, because I kind of force in fake texture because my hair doesn't really have quite this much. So I can create these S patterns within my hair to make it look like I have more wave than I really do. And so a lot of times just it has to go into your consultation, and I like to show lots and lots and lots of pictures. So the first thing I look at when I'm looking at a client's hair is the density of their hair, because you cannot over texturize like very lightly dense hair. So fine, baby fine, don't have a lot to it. You don't want to texturize too deep, because then you're creating holes. And I think anyone that has really fine, thin hair has had a nightmare haircut where somebody's done that to them, so they're terrified of having their hair texturized. Another thing I think about is where they want movement to go. Short hair pushes long hair, so whether it's in your bangs or in your layers, the short hair is going to push that long hair into a shape. So thinking about that when you're going to remove bulk, what's going to push into that shape once you've removed that bulk. I'll just show you a little bit of what I do. So I mostly create C patterns throughout the hair, and I do sometimes I do a lot of wet, but then I also will do dry. Kaylee asked me a question last week about this, so I'll just share her question now. She wanted to know how to remove, when you're gonna take out a lot of bulk from hair for like hair bulk reduction, how to do that wet so you're not blow drying all that hair and then dry cutting it all a second time. So a lot of times what I do with that, I think this will work, it's just higher. So first with texturizing, I over direct. Everything gets pretty much over directed when I'm doing interior texturizing or interior layers. So I do it also. So when hair's wet, I definitely do much finer sections, because you're going to take out too much bulk. If it's wet, you could like slice out a big chunk and then you have a hole. So I do take out bulk when it's wet. So this is actually perfect. This cut is like so not good. So if I were just gonna try to blend that, this to this is a huge shape shift. So you could all the way over direct, or not shape shift, and cut that corner and then bring it back, and then it will kind of connect when it goes back. Does that make sense? You over direct. So whatever you do over here and it makes a C this way, and you push it back, it's gonna be a C this way. that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So with wet, I'm gonna look at that top section now. So, I'm trying to slow this down, so I have squirt water. I think there's water in. There's enough. Oh, you're gonna get misted.
I know, I did a quick little.
So I do kind of the same when it's wet. I just don't go as crazy unless I know their hair, and especially if I've already cut it before because I know how dense it is. But when you see through the hair that much when that's a wet panel, probably not gonna do a lot. But you can over direct all the way, and I will go no more than usually 2 inches from the bottom to maybe 3 at the most. And I would come in and drag my shears into doing a little bit of a removal, and then pick up your same section and just go right above it and do the same thing.
Would you always be over directed like vertical for the most part? Like you don't do a lot of pulling out to 45 and then in?
Not when I'm wet, not when I'm doing it to remove bulk,
Okay,
because I don't want to take too much.
gotcha.
I feel if I do it when I'm over directing wet, I'm doing it to remove some bulk, and I don't always have to let it go. So see, I can do like that too.
Yep.
And then you can take that out, but you can see there are 2 little tiny C's, but it will collapse it, and then you're not doing as much. And then when I'm dry texturizing, I can pull out and do this sort of thing and take it out, or lift it, and then you can go a little higher if you were to want to do that. And like you can see, she had this big huge chunk there that was like a big thick panel, so watch, because Samantha had the whole. So when you pull this up, see how this is so, you can't even see through that. So that's where I would go in, real slight. And I usually will dig my C a little deeper if they really want to see that, like my hair has that, because that's a shape, so, but when it's like super fine hair, but they want that movement, I probably would not even do it dry. I would just wait and do it wet, because but when you're drying like a ton of hair, and they just want bulk removal, then I typically will lift, over direct, and then take out my weight. You can, but you can also do it with a razor going the opposite direction. You could go, then you could kind of go out because you're seeing it. I mean, I guess, yes, I do. I don't do it wet though, usually this way.
That's what I feel like would take a lot of bulk out versus like going up is like a more.
Yeah, well, and when it's dry, I'll go this way, and that's when you kind of see your shape and you see your S pattern. Then I would go in and see that this is there. So this one right here, you can see there's like a little panel missing in here. And when this goes down, this kind of wants to go this way and kind of wants to go this way. But this, to define this, then I would re-lift this up and take this little end off. Because now we have this shape going there, and this part, we already took off the top part of this, so this will come this direction. So then you get that S in there. Does everyone see that? Does that make sense? So I'll just do it kind of quick. It's hard to texturize slow. So I would be doing this in this haircut. So if I looked at this haircut, I would be like, okay, I know this is this wolfy haircut, and this is so dense though, and you want some density, but I would go through and take small sections to really shatter it. If I just wanted to create deep texture, I would take a wider section this way, wider vertical. To shatter, I usually take smaller, because then I'm just breaking it up versus putting in a shape. So I would take a thicker section and really carve that in and get those C's to break it up and see more movement. Does that make sense? Okay. Versus doing that. Awful sound. Another thing I like to do, if somebody's gonna have a really texturized cut, a lot of times I will do a dry cut first to create the textured shape, and then wet cut them the exterior. So you're just kind of blunting off like this part, but then you're not over texturizing. because I feel if you cut your shape and then you go in and you texturize heavily for a heavy texturized cut, they're gonna feel like they have a really short haircut, because by removing the bulk, you're moving that shape. So sometimes you only want to dust the ends after. With texturized cuts like mine with my clients, I will usually do like texture, and then just a blunt cut on like a second or third cut, and we skip texturizing to kind of let some of that grow back in. Otherwise it just gets too much. And then they're losing that shape. Then their hair is just looking frizzled, like if you were to look at my ends right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we don't always want that for our clients. I can fake it by putting a lot of products in it, but if my client were to do this and not like style it and mess with it every day, it's gonna look like who has not cut her hair in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's also important, not to take out too much of the weight of the bottom of a cut. So with bangs though, so like with that whole concept of short hair pushing long hair, when you do a fringe line, it's kind of the same thing. I think to look at where their sides sit. So my sides go really far back right here on both my sides. So this side does a really strong, find it in here. This side does a really strong S that tweaks up, and so it just creates this really big bubble here. So because I am removing, I don't have a ton of hair there, but my bangs come from back here. If this is cut too squared, this just pushes out. So even though I don't have a lot of hair there, I still remove like a C right here. This
From
always
the hairline?
has to be from the hairline, not quite at that exact one,
Mm-hmm.
but I always remove that so that this collapses down this direction.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise my hair goes like this because of my natural pattern there. So that's the thing to look at when somebody wants to add bangs, or you know, trimming and reshaping is one thing, but when people are adding, is to really look at what this part of their hairline does, and this, a widow's peak, a cowlick, anything like that, because the moment you take that weight off, that's gonna pop in and you're gonna see that. Yeah.
Do you typically, like, for someone that's getting bangs for the first time, like, do you do it dry on the way their hair is when they came in?
No, not always, because it's split. So a lot of times what I do, and it also teaches somebody how to style bangs, is after they're shampooed, I immediately push forward what they're going to have forward, and I blow dry back, forth, with my, like a wet brush. So I blow dry it like this, so if they have a cowlick, it's gonna kind of break that cowlick, but also it's just kind of pushing it forward and using the head shape as the shape of, instead of using a round brush, this is giving them their natural bend, and then the hair is also gonna, you know, push to the sides, because that's usually what people are doing right now. And so doing that lets it just kind of settle, and then I can do the haircut, and then we'll go back in. So with bangs, especially the style of it right now, we are a little shorter in the center, or a little shorter here, and then everything's here, but everything is kind of really soft and connecting. We don't really have the bangs and a haircut look right now. It's very all pretty fluid. So one thing I've learned through these last couple of years of curtain bang cutting is to texturize first and cut second, especially for this area, because when I feel you can create your length with your texture, because what happens if you take out, you don't want to remove bulk where you want the hair to split, because you need that density right here to kind of push this out. So you're going to remove bulk where you want the hair to settle. Does that make sense? I think that's how it's said. So like this, we kind of want our hair to do this sort of thing right now. Everything kind of goes out. So if you were to remove this bulk, then you don't have that weight to push, because you want that short hair to push out these long ones and kind of help support this to stay over. So that's one of the most important things I learned by messing with my own, chipping in, and taking way too much weight out here, and then having to pull more forward to kind of blunt it off to support these side pieces. So removing weight here helps push, these short hairs help push those long hairs. And the other thing I never do is I take the top off when I'm cutting their fringe, because this will always, just in case we accidentally cut too short or things happen, but I always leave my veil, because really when you look at pictures, you want that dishevelly tousled top, but you need this to be cut, that this is where your shape is, and this is kind of overlays on
Mm-hmm.
top. And just because, you know, it's almost like you want to undercut your bangs. Like right now I have a little section that was cut more squared, so then what happens is I have these short pieces on top that are kicking this out, but not in a soft way, just because it,
Because you said it's too square,
yeah,
but you don't want to texturize it.
well, it's a little too short to texturize it. You can
Yeah.
see what it is. So I took some weight out from underneath to help collapse it over. So to me, there's a lot of videos right now, and so one that I personally don't love, but I do it a little different because I like the concept of it, because everything is about over directing, I think, when it comes to texturizing bangs, softness, everything like that, because right now the look, I don't see anything being squared off except a structured bob, you know, base cut, and then, but everything else is shattery. So this is the cut we see a lot right now, is they just do this and then they cut it perfectly straight down. So when that collapses, the underneath is longer, and you have like a layered effect. So I like to do that same sort of thing, but it's kind of like when we first learn, how to create like lift, when we were learning how to do like the crown, the lift here, you use your hand to shape the head, and that's kind of your angle. So I kind of think of that like for bangs too. Like look at their head shape, their forehead shape. Because their forehead's really round, because some people's is. You know, you kind of think about that. So hers is like this. So when I pull this out to see the length that I want for her nose, let's say we're gonna go to the nose. You know, we're gonna take this. This is her length. But then I'm gonna pull this back up and pull my hand out, because I don't want this shorter than that. So see, when it drops down, it's kind of like you can almost square it up like that. Does that make sense?
Because then you're giving yourself some weight that you can texturize
Yeah.
into.
Because now it's kind of square, but I personally like it to be even shorter. So I like to chip every thing on her bit. But so I will chip that underneath, because now she has a little bit of an undercut there, so it's gonna cup under for her, which is the goal. Because we don't want our bangs to wing this way, we want our bangs to do this. So then I just start working my way around in small pivots. You want this one? Whatever.
Carries me out around in the house sometimes.
Well, he's like, I'm not sure. So, and then I just go back into the original, but I like to over direct it a little bit. So I pull it back to the original, and then I also pull a little further. Depending on, now like mine just kind of gently go down, but people that really want that heavy push, then I would keep over directing more. So go to my original spot and then pull just a little beyond. So like this would be the original, and then I'm gonna pull further. So, oops. And I think one of the biggest things that is really important with when people are adding any sort of fringe like this isn't straight, but it's okay, is that you teach them how to style them after. Because that's the hardest part, is people are like, mine never do this. So a couple of my favorite tricks are the hair powder, putting it in the bangs even when it's wet to start, if anyone has any sort of cowlick or any sort of like things where their bangs just split apart, I put a little bit of the hair powder in when it's wet, and then back forth, and that kind of helps it not get clumpy and flat and sticky by the end of the afternoon, and it just keeps their bangs a little more controlled. I think that's what it works for me anyway.
What do you put in this? Hair powder?
The powder, the Bumble powder, just a little bit. I shake it in my bangs when it's
Hair
wet.
powder.
Oh.
Yeah.
The loose one, not like.
The loose one, yeah. So, this is super heavy, but you can kind of see, because we haven't done any textures, and she has the most hair any mannequin has ever had right now. But you can see the shape already just coming in, just all on its own, without even texturizing yet. Man, it's so dense, her hair. Okay, so let's just go a little faster. And then is this kind of a common way you guys do this too? Or do you guys do them different?
I don't have like a perfect go-to honestly all the time. I feel like I do end up doing more layering than what you're talking about to get the texture on the ends. Like to debulking it, I end up putting a shorter layer on top of the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I like
You
what
put
you're.
the shorter on top?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's typically what I end up
Like,
doing.
it's like
and then I
it's-
do some slide cutting and like internally,
Yeah.
the small sections that I take out.
Yeah.
But I definitely layer more than what.
Yeah.
And it does make sense that if you're putting a layer on top, then you're gonna kick out the ends.
Yeah, which if you want that, I mean, that's like, okay, but like,
But kind of in a less predictable.
if it's too dense, what you get is this chunkiness right here, is what it is. So this is where now I come around. Let's get this one right. So this, I tucked up her top panel, I just kinda, and everything, so I'm gonna go from here to there. Because this is how my hair is gonna fall, is like this is how they want it to go. So we're gonna do the same thing, we're gonna take that top part off, kind of like a little bit of a U. And then from here, I will slice at an angle, and this is where I would do some texturizing. And I actually would go really deep like that, just cause this is so dense. And if it was like fresh bangs, she's never had them cut, I'm gonna really try to push that shape in there for her, so she doesn't get flustered by cutting or by trying to style them. And you can over direct them like that. So all of that is starting to create this to start moving to the side without so much effort. I think one thing with bangs, doing a fluid motion is really important too, because that's kind of what your thumb does. And you think about like, and also like watching people, how they style their bangs or what they do with the front. I have a friend that is always like, Jordan is a person that always does this. So she is always a lean forward and like that push out, which means what they're trying to do is reduce bulk right there to create a bend. So like a person that's doing that, you're gonna go through and you can lift this and take even a little more out if it feels like it's too dense. And so where that is right by her eye, and you can pull out and create a C this way. So by creating a C this way, these short hairs are gonna push these long hairs back.
Oh, see, I would almost think the opposite. I would want to.
It seems like it would be the opposite, but you want the short hair, well, the short hair is behind her eye, but those short hairs will start to push these long, and then this has a space to push into it.
Huh, yeah.
Does that make sense? It seems backwards, so if you were to go this way, or sorry, yeah, if you were to go, I went this way. If you were to go this way, then your short hair is down here, so it's gonna push these ends this direction. But this would push this way then. So it's just thinking about where the shortest part is, the long hairs are gonna push into that, and it's gonna push the hairs below. So if you want the bend to be further down here, you could do it down there, same thing, then the short hairs are gonna be down here pushing these long hairs out. So it's just about like removing bulk. You know, it's like, it really is, if you think about where you put your thumb and you're like, oh, this is what I'm doing, and you don't really realize what you do, or when you put a round brush in, like, what am I trying to create there? I'm trying to create a bend, or if somebody has a natural bend, go with that. If they have a big S here, like this is where I have a weird S, so I want to eliminate that S. I don't want to bring it out, so I'm going to cut against it. I'm going to take the mid part of my S away, gently, don't just like, but that is going to help create, it's going to remove that, so then this can settle, and then I can create an S down below, because this is where I want it. Even though it's not real down there, then I can kind of fake it. So like, if you really want to create that S, you can see how this now wants to go in and out. You could then go here, and you would kind of shape this part. It's kind of like, what did I say to you the other day, Casey? It's, you're carving hair. It's kind of what I think about when I texturize. You know, you're really carving in a shape. It's just not, it's not wood, it's hair. But you can carve in a shape, especially somebody with really dense hair, and create those patterns that they want to see. And then teach them how to use a dryer or product to, or both, to kind of really push that in. So like, watch, I'll put a blow dryer on this now. And just show you what it does. So what I always tell people when they have like this kind of bang, or any sort of like where they want this shape, it's horizontal to vertical. And just saying that to somebody helps, because they try to do these wingy things. It's just, you're gonna round brush horizontally, let it cool, pull out vertically, and that will give you that. So this is where I remove that little part, that little S in there, and let it cool, and then pull. And now this will like, now that it's settled, and then put the top down.
Put it in here.
So I just pull it all forward.